The church smelled of lilies and polished wood. Every seat was filled, but the silence felt heavy, like no one dared to breathe too loudly. My husband, Andrew, was gone, and I was the woman everyone was staring at, some with pity, most with suspicion. I kept my hands clasped tight in my lap, my black gloves hiding how much they trembled. I'd loved Andrew for 12 years, and yet, as I sat there listening to the soft hymn echo through the vaulted ceiling, I could feel the weight of his family's eyes burning holes through me. When the service ended, the lawyer, Mr. Harris, stood at the front of the church, his briefcase in hand. He cleared his throat. As per Andrew Carter's instructions, the life insurance arrangements will be made public today. A murmur rippled through the pews. That wasn't normal. Not at a funeral. I turned to look at Andrew's mother, Elaine. She was sitting stone-faced, a tissue crumpled in her manicured hand. Next to her, his sister, Claire, smirked at me like she'd already won something. Mr. Harris opened a folder. The life insurance will be divided among the beneficiaries listed in the policy. The first name on that list is... He hesitated, glancing up at me, uncomfortable. Claire Carter. The room buzzed. Heads turned toward me. I froze. My heartbeat roared in my ears. Claire's eyes sparkled as she tilted her chin, pretending to wipe a tear. Mr. Harris continued. The second beneficiary is Mrs. Elaine Carter, and the remainder... He flipped through the pages, frowning. There appears to be no allocation listed for the spouse. My body went cold. That's impossible, I said, my voice breaking through the whispers. Andrew and I... He would never... Elaine's lips curled. Oh dear, it's not impossible. It's justice. Laughter, quiet, cruel, spread through the back pews. I stood up, dizzy, my vision swimming. You're lying, I said, staring at the lawyer. Check again. I'm afraid that's what's written, he said softly. We'll confirm with the insurance company. But I barely heard him, because I knew what was happening. It wasn't grief that filled the room now. It was satisfaction. The Carters had been waiting for this moment. And as I looked at their smug faces, one truth settled like ice in my chest. They wanted me gone, and they were willing to rewrite the story of his death to make sure of it. By the time I got home that night, the whispers had already spread faster than the rain streaking down my windshield. The neighbors stared from their porches. Someone even pulled their curtains back just enough for me to see. I could almost hear them saying it. She killed him for the money and didn't get a dime. The phone rang as soon as I walked inside. I picked it up with shaking hands. Mrs. Carter? The voice was calm, too calm. Detective Moore, Springfield PD. We'd like to ask you a few questions about your husband's death. My chest tightened. Questions? Why? There were inconsistencies in the autopsy report. We'd prefer to speak in person. I didn't answer right away. I was staring at the photo of Andrew on the mantel. His smile, his warm eyes. He'd been healthy, full of life, until suddenly he wasn't. They'd said it was a heart attack. Quick, natural. But now, when I finally found my voice, it came out hollow. I'll come down tomorrow. After I hung up, I sat there in the dark, numb. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance, but inside my mind it was already storming. I thought of Elaine and Claire at the funeral, the way they'd smirked when my name wasn't read. They'd known. They'd known. The next morning I walked into the police station with my chin high and my heart hammering. Detective Moore met me in a small, cold room with a flickering light. He was polite. The kind of polite that means we already think you're guilty. Mrs. Carter, he began, your husband's toxicology screen came back with trace amounts of digitalis. I blinked. Digitalis? It's a compound derived from foxglove, lethal in the right dose. I stared at him. You think I poisoned him? He didn't answer, just watched me. The coroner noted the symptoms were consistent with cardiac arrest, which would make it easy to overlook. I shook my head. That's insane. I loved him. Moore leaned forward. Did you also know you were removed as the beneficiary from his life insurance? My mouth went dry. Yes, at the funeral. And how did that make you feel? I laughed. Sharp, bitter, like I'd fallen into a nightmare. He nodded, jotting something in his notebook. Mrs. Carter, do you mind telling me where you were the night before his death? I was home, I said, my voice shaking. I was here. I made dinner, we talked. He said he didn't feel well and went to bed early. By morning he was gone. Moore closed his notebook. If what you're saying is true, you won't mind a search of the house. I swallowed hard. Of course not. But when they arrived that afternoon, I understood what this really was. They weren't searching for evidence. They were searching for a story, one the Carters had already written. And as I watched the officers bag up my kitchen bottles and take my computer, I saw Elaine across the street, standing under her umbrella, smiling. That was when I knew. This wasn't just an accusation. It was an ambush. And someone, maybe more than one, had made sure Andrew's death looked like my crime. They searched the house for 6 hours. Drawers open, cabinets emptied. By the time they left, the place looked ransacked, like my grief had been turned inside out for everyone to see. They didn't find anything, but they didn't need to. The rumor was already doing the work for them. By nightfall, the news had spread. Police investigate wife in suspicious deaths of Springfield businessman. I sat in the dark, the TV flickering with my own nightmare, when a knock sounded at the door. It was David Moore, the detective again. This time, he looked almost regretful. I thought you should know before you hear it from anyone else, he said. A bottle of Digitalis was found in your garage, hidden behind a box of Christmas decorations. My stomach dropped. That's impossible. I've never seen anything like that. He nodded, but his eyes said everyone says that. We're sending it to the lab for prints. If you're telling the truth, it'll show. But I could see the doubt there already. Someone had planted it, and I had a sickening feeling I knew who. After he left, I collapsed onto the couch, shaking. My mind replayed the last weeks of Andrew's life. Every strange phone call, every time his sister had dropped by unannounced. The envelope I'd once seen him hide in his briefcase when I walked into the room. He'd been nervous, guarded. Now I understood why. The next morning I drove to Andrew's office building. His assistant, Melissa, looked startled when she saw me. Mrs. Carter, I'm so sorry. I didn't expect you. I just need to look through his things, I said. The police have the house, but I need to understand what happened. She hesitated, then nodded. His office is still the same. When I walked in, it was like stepping into a frozen moment. His jacket was still on the back of the chair, his pen resting across an open planner. But one thing caught my eye. An envelope wedged under the keyboard, marked personal. I opened it. Inside was a note, written in his familiar hand. If anything happens to me, tell my lawyer to open file 7B. Trust no one from my family, especially Claire. My pulse thudded in my ears. File 7B. I didn't wait. I drove straight to Mr. Harris's office, clutching the note like proof of sanity. He looked startled when I burst in. Andrew left you a message, I said, laying the paper on his desk. He read it, his face going pale. File 7B? He muttered. That's in our secure archive. He disappeared into the back room and returned a few minutes later carrying a thick, sealed folder. When he opened it, I saw pages of financial records, contracts, and something else. Insurance documents. The real ones. Good God, Harris breathed. This is the original policy. It names you as the sole beneficiary. My heart nearly stopped. Then what was read at the funeral? He flipped through, frowning. A forged copy. Someone altered it before it reached the insurer. Who had access? I asked. He hesitated. His family did briefly, when they demanded to review his will last month. I sat back, shaking. Elaine, Claire. They'd rewritten the paperwork, made me look greedy, and worse, guilty. Harris looked at me gravely. Lydia, you need to take this to the police right now. This changes everything. But before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a message. No name, just a photo, a picture of me, standing in Harris's office, the folder open on the desk. The message read, "Stop digging, or you'll join him." My hands went cold. Whoever was behind this wasn't done yet, and if Andrew had been killed for what he knew, then finding the truth might cost me the same. I locked my doors that night and sat in the dark with every light off. The message kept replaying in my mind. Stop digging or you'll join him. Whoever sent it knew exactly where I'd been, what I'd found, and that I was close to uncovering something they couldn't afford to lose. At 2:17 a.m., I heard a noise outside, a soft crunch of gravel under tires. Then headlights flashed briefly across the living room window before going dark. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Whoever was watching wanted me to know they were there. The next morning, I drove to the police station with the real policy file and the threatening text. Detective Moore looked up as I walked in, his expression unreadable. "Mrs. Carter," he said carefully, "I was just about to call you. The lab confirmed something on that bottle we found." I froze. "What?" "No prints. None. Completely wiped." He watched me, waiting for my reaction. "So," I said slowly, "someone planted it." Moore nodded slightly. "That's what I'm starting to think." I set the folder on his desk. "Then you're going to want to see this." He opened it, his eyes scanning the pages. The more he read, the harder his jaw set. "This is the original life insurance policy," I said. "Andrew left everything to me. His family forged a new version before the funeral." Moore's pen stopped mid-air. "Do you have proof of who did it?" "Not yet," I said, "but his lawyer can confirm it. And Andrew left a note warning me about his sister Claire." He exhaled. "All right, I'll have a forensic team verify the documents. If what you're saying checks out." He looked up at me. "Then your husband's death may not have been natural after all." I left the station with my heart pounding. The truth was shifting under my feet. What had started as an accusation against me was turning into something far darker. That afternoon, I drove to Claire's townhouse. She answered the door in a silk robe, her smile thin and smug. "Well, well, the grieving widow. Come to beg." "Actually," I said, stepping closer, "I came to ask how long you've been forging legal documents." Her smile froze. "Excuse me? You and your mother rewrote Andrew's insurance policy. I've seen the original." She laughed, but her eyes flickered. "Too fast. You have no idea what you're talking about." "I have proof, and so do the police." Her face drained of color. "You don't understand," she hissed. "This wasn't supposed to go this far." I grabbed her arm. "Then tell me what this is." She yanked free, shaking. "It was my mother's idea. She said Andrew didn't deserve to leave you everything. She just wanted to make it look like you had a motive, to pressure you into walking away before the insurance settled." I stared at her, stunned. "You framed me for murder to get money?" Tears welled in her eyes. "We didn't kill him, Lydia. We didn't." The words hit me wrong. Too fast, too rehearsed. I took a step closer. "Then who did?" Her lips trembled. "There was someone else. Someone helping her. He—" Before she could finish, a loud crash erupted behind me. The front window shattered. Claire screamed and ducked. I turned just in time to see a dark figure outside. Then the sound of a car speeding away. Glass glittered across the floor. They hadn't been aiming for me. They'd been aiming for her. I crawled to her side, heart racing. "Claire, are you hurt?" She shook her head, eyes wide with terror. "You don't get it," she whispered. "It's bigger than my mother. Andrew found out. That's why he died." I helped her up. "Who?" I demanded. "Who's behind this?" Her lips moved, barely a whisper. "Someone from his company. He called him the broker." Before I could ask more, sirens wailed in the distance. That night, as I replayed her words, something inside me shifted again. Andrew hadn't just been killed for insurance money. He'd uncovered something his family and his business both wanted buried, and now they were making sure no one lived long enough to expose it. By dawn, I was sitting in my car outside Andrew's company, Carter Financial Group, watching the lights flicker on one by one. The city was waking up, but my world hadn't slept. Claire's words still echoed in my mind. He called him the broker. Whoever that was, he'd been the key to everything. I walked into the lobby pretending to be composed, though my stomach twisted with dread. Andrew's old assistant, Melissa, looked up from her desk. Her face softened. "Mrs. Carter, I saw the news." "I'm so sorry about all this." "Melissa," I said quietly, "I need your help. Do you know who Andrew referred to as the broker?" Her expression changed instantly. fear. You shouldn't be asking that. Please, I pressed. He wrote that name down before he died. You must know something. She looked around, then leaned in. There was a man. Came in a few times last year. Always after hours. No last name on file. But Andrew called him Mr. Lyle. He said they were closing a private deal. Do you have any record of him? She nodded. Security logs. But Mrs. Carter, after Andrew died, someone came in and asked for all the footage. Said it was for the family. I felt my pulse spike. His mother. Melissa swallowed hard, and she wasn't alone. Who was with her? She hesitated. A man, mid-40s, expensive suit, cold eyes. I'd never seen him before, but when she called him Mr. Lyle, he looked right at me and smiled. The same name, the same man Andrew had feared. When I left the office, my hands were shaking. I called Detective Moore from the car. I found the man Andrew was meeting with, I said. His name's Lyle. He's connected to both the company and his mother. There was a pause on the other end. Then Moore said quietly, I think you should come down here, Mrs. Carter. We've been digging into your husband's financials. I drove straight to the station, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles hurt. Moore met me in the hallway. You were right, he said. Your husband was investigating fraud inside Carter Financial. Massive embezzlement tied to offshore accounts. The trail stops at someone named Lyle Richardson, listed as a consultant. He hesitated. We traced his company. It doesn't exist. I felt cold all over. So he's using Andrew's firm to launder money. Moore nodded grimly. And when Andrew found out, he became a liability. Your husband didn't die of a heart attack, Mrs. Carter. Someone made sure of that. The floor seemed to drop beneath me. Then why frame me? I asked. Moore's jaw tightened. Because your husband's policy left everything to you. If they turned suspicion on you, the payout would be frozen, and they could access the trust in his family's name in the meantime. A perfect setup. A murder disguised as a heart attack. A wife turned scapegoat. Where's Lyle now? I asked. Moore looked grim. Gone. Vanished 2 days after the funeral. That evening, I drove to Claire's again. She answered with red eyes and trembling hands. I told the police everything, she said before I could speak. They know about Lyle, about the money. Good, I said, because I'm not stopping until every person who helped him is exposed. She hesitated. Lydia, my mother, you don't understand. She wasn't just helping Lyle. She owed him. Andrew found out they'd invested together years ago, illegally. He was going to turn them both in. I stared at her, the truth unraveling in my chest like a fuse. So she knew he was in danger. She sent him to meet Lyle that night, Claire whispered. She thought it was just a bribe, but when he didn't come home, her voice broke. The silence between us was suffocating. When I finally spoke, my voice was steady. Then I'll make sure the world knows exactly who killed him. That night I gave Moore everything. Andrew's note, the real insurance policy, and the list of shell accounts from Lyle's company. He looked at me with something like respect. You just blew open a conspiracy, Mrs. Carter. I didn't feel heroic. I felt hollow, because the man I'd loved had trusted the wrong people, and they'd taken him from me piece by piece. But one thought burned brighter than grief. Elaine Carter thought she'd buried her son's wife under lies. Tomorrow, I'd bury her with the truth. The courthouse smelled of rain and old paper. A strange comfort, considering everything that had happened. Reporters lined the steps outside, flashing cameras, shouting questions about the widow accused. I kept walking, chin high, clutching the folder that had cost me everything but my fear. Inside, the air buzzed with whispers. Elaine Carter sat in the front row, dressed in black, pearls gleaming against her throat, her lawyer whispering in her ear. Claire sat a few rows behind her, pale and trembling. She hadn't spoken to her mother since the night of the shooting. Detective Moore nodded when he saw me. Ready? I nodded back. My hands were steady. The hearing was short but explosive. Rachel, my attorney, presented the documents we'd gathered. Andrew's real-life insurance policy, the bank statements, the note from his office, the text messages from the night of the attack. Each piece landed like a hammer blow. The defendant's family, Rachel said, voice calm but cold. Knowingly forged documents to remove Mrs. Carter from her rightful inheritance. When Mr. Carter discovered evidence of financial fraud within his company, fraud involving one Lyle Richardson, a man tied to both Carter Financial and to Mrs. Elaine Carter's private accounts, he was silenced. Elaine's lawyer objected, but Rachel was relentless. And when the murder couldn't be disguised as natural, they framed the only person who stood to lose everything. When she handed the folder to the judge, a hush fell over the room. Moore stepped forward next. Forensic analysis confirmed that Mr. Richardson's fingerprints were found on the bottle of Digitalis discovered in Mrs. Carter's garage, not hers. Evidence also places Richardson's vehicle outside the Carter residence the night of the death. He's since fled the country. I watched as Elaine's face drained of color. For the first time, she looked like someone realizing the storm she'd unleashed had finally turned on her. Claire stood up suddenly, voice cracking. "It was her!" she shouted. "She made the deal! She told Lyle to make it look natural!" Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Elaine spun toward her daughter, eyes blazing. "You stupid girl!" But it was too late. The judge ordered immediate investigation into Elaine's role in Andrew's death and the insurance fraud. The estate was frozen. When it was over, I stepped outside into the gray morning light. Reporters swarmed, but their voices sounded far away. All I could hear was the rain, soft, steady, like the world exhaling after a long breath. Claire approached me, tears streaking her mascara. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I didn't know it would go that far. I looked at her for a long moment. Neither did Andrew. She nodded, broken, and walked away. Detective Moore came up beside me. "They'll find Lyle, and when they do, this whole thing will be open and shut." I nodded, eyes fixed on the horizon. "It won't bring him back." "No," Moore said, "but it'll give him peace." That night, I went home for the first time in weeks. The house was quiet but not empty. I poured a glass of wine and sat by the window where Andrew used to read. His favorite book was still on the shelf, worn at the corners. I opened it, and a folded note slipped out. "If they ever turn you against me, don't believe it. The truth always finds its way back to you." I smiled through tears. "You were right, Andrew," I whispered. It did. The storm outside finally broke, clearing the sky. For the first time since his death, I felt like I could breathe again. Elaine Carter would face justice. Lyle would be hunted down. And my name, my life, was mine again. As I closed the window, I whispered the words that had lived in my throat since the funeral. "You didn't just leave me money, Andrew. You left me the truth, and that's worth everything." Then I turned off the light, letting the rain wash away the last of the lies.